but I got to know her very well, and she was, she was in recovery for drug and alcohol, so she had her own issues, but otherwise we got along pretty great. And then one day after knowing her for about 4 months in the therapeutic setting, she just mentioned, oh yeah, my dad is very heavy into white supremacist stuff, and so is his whole side of the family. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And she just very casually says, oh, well, I don't agree. And, but it's so interesting because for them, just commonplace, just completely 100% like, oh yeah, dad's a white supremacist, right? So with these white supremacist rallies, protests, and things popping up nowadays, I've heard some people lament people being fired because they say, but it's their First Amendment right to say that.
Right.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Is it fair or unfair that they're being
because
fired?
There's also this thing that's going on with UNL right now,
University of Nebraska at Lincoln,
where Turning Point USA is targeting. They have this professor watch list. I'm pretty sure I'll be on that watch list at some point, right? And so, and I've been warned, like, you best be careful, because apparently they feel like we are targeting conservative students. That conservative students are not allowed to speak with their mind, which is absolutely not true. We teach critical thinking and all of that kind of stuff. But what I'm struggling with, especially being a mother of children who are in vulnerable positions in middle and elementary school, working with a lot of youth who hear some really harmful things, especially after the election. I remember at a school in Western Omaha where there were students who were holding up protest signs silently, and then some white students started chanting "Build the Wall," and the principal being really proud of the fact that he allowed both sides to hear their opinions. So my thing, and I'm going back to, again, my philosophy of harm reduction, is in one case, so the students holding up their protest signs were not harming anybody. They were speaking up for their humanity, right? They were saying, hey, we are human beings. We deserve to be here. We deserve to be safe and respected and being given dignity and being celebrated and honored. And the other side was dehumanizing them. So in my view, if one opinion harms people, dehumanizes people, takes the rights away of people to be, living, life, liberty, and happiness, which is what everybody wants, then I don't know if that opinion is equal to the other opinion. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you think people should get, if they do things like that, should they get fired from their jobs?
If they're going to harm people at their jobs, yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm a copy editor and I'm working by myself out of my cubicle and I'm not hurting anybody, by saying these things in my own time, then I don't know. But and my other question is, should there be a degree to which you receive consequences based on what you did?
Do you think some people are writing HR manuals right now based on all this? I'm sure.
Well, I know where I work, there's freedom of expression paperwork coming out. They're revising
they have to.
Our policy on that.
Well, how do you feel about, because that is, I don't run HR for a company, and I don't know if I'll ever have an issue like that. So it's all, our opinions are really theoretical on all this. But here's another thing, another question. How do you feel when people dox other people? So for those of you who don't know what doxing is, it means that you can, through the internet, get people's phone number, address, a picture of them, put it up on the internet, and basically put out there for everyone to do whatever they want with. So when things like that have happened, some people have got repeated phone calls, or one popular thing is just to send a bunch of pizzas to their house, right? But then more serious things like people driving by, or people sending threatening messages. How do you feel about that? People doxing other people, if they're a white supremacist.
I shy away from that because they also, there's a lot of collateral damage that goes with that. I've seen people being doxed who have children who could be harmed by that, who have parents and siblings who could be harmed by that, who have people they take care of because they're caregivers. So I shy away from that because of that collateral damage, and because it's not the compassionate thing to do. Even though, I don't know. I go back and forth because I know if somebody came up to me and did something to one of my children, I'd punch the Nazi. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that's something I was just about to ask is, and I get, Hillary Clinton said something, a lot of people panned her for it, but I agreed with it. And I didn't agree with Hillary Clinton with a lot of things, but I agreed with this. As she said, she has a public opinion and a private opinion. And I think what she was trying to say, and I'm not sure if she didn't, because I feel like I got the message, but maybe she didn't. Her messaging could have been better, or I don't know if people are being purposely obtuse. I can't tell, but she said in having a personal opinion, private opinion, what I think she was trying to say is that I have an opinion that I think is good for me and the way I live my life, and then my public opinion are things that I'm willing to make policy on and things that change. So I struggle with this because we cannot, as a society, we cannot function on having it be public policy, as in put in laws that if someone has a position that you disagree with, to be able to punch them. Now, is fascism and Nazi beliefs dangerous to let grow? Yes. Yeah. Yes, they are. But, and you know, I've read numerous white supremacy books when I was about 5 or 6 years ago. And if you know me, when I get nervous about things, I read them. I dig all the way down because it makes me feel better. And in numerous books, they use those types of things as marketing to younger kids. They see they hate us. See, they hate you because you're white.
You know, teaching at South when we had Fred Phelps and the God Hates Fags people come and protest. I had to teach my kids, you do not go out there and throw stuff at them because that's how they make their money. They're going to sue
they're
you,
lawyers,
right?
They
for
will
violence.
sue the pants off
you. So you just need to not, you know. And it was hard because we can't say you don't deserve justice, or you know, but we don't want to feed into that. And also, what's the end goal? Yeah. Well, so I'm always thinking about my end objective. If my end objective is, so for example, I had a student who came in and he told me, so I'm going to be taking this class from you this fall, and I just want you to know, and this was a high school student, I just want you to know that I'm a Nazi. Oh, yeah. And I was like, for real? First of all, wow, how brave of you to tell me this before the semester's even started. Secondly, really? And so, you know, I went to the media specialist. She's like, oh, yep, he's checked out all of these white supremacist books. Like, this is his thing. And so I had to figure out how I was going to be his teacher. Right, as a woman of color, as a queer woman of color who's an immigrant.
And here's the thing: you were the adult in that situation, but it's still scary.
It's extremely scary. But the fact that he had the courage to come and tell me that, you know, gave me a level of respect for him. But I had to keep my end goal in mind, which was I have to teach him. And if I want him not to be a Nazi, then I have to be open-minded about having him in my room.
Here's something that I heard I've read. Is some people call it's the rebranding of Nazism, and that is the alt-right. Yeah. And I'm not, and again, it's so hard nowadays to tell, are people being earnest or are they, because
is it the cool thing to do?
Well, if you haven't, here's the thing, if you haven't read on fascism, which is something else I've read up on because I've been nervous about it. If you haven't read up on fascism, there's this brilliant quote that says, never believe that Nazis aren't aware that their arguments are absurd. Never, because that disinformation is part of their tactics. And so I've heard people from the alt-right say the danger is when you label everyone as a Nazi. If you don't like someone, you just label a Nazi. That way you give yourself and other people permission to punch them. The alt-right stuff is really, to me, it is really just rebranded extreme right-wing ideology. And if you've lived around here, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. If you've lived in a place like Nebraska, you've met right-wing people. Oh, yeah. You've met, and you haven't just met them. They're your neighbors. They're your teachers. They're the people working at the grocery store. They're family members. You just know how to get along with conservative people. Yeah. And I'd say Omaha and Lincoln are the most conservative towns in Nebraska, and they're not very conservative at all. Yeah. Right? So I've met conservative people that I've liked, that I have respected, who I've been able to have good conversations with, and that's my plan. Also, with this podcast is eventually bring some of the people I know who do lean a little right, and who I've been able to in my own personal time with them have like good productive conversations where we disagree, but we can move on. Now, here's the other side of the argument that I've heard. Is that when you do that and you sit down, you have a conversation like this, that you normalize those types of people. Yeah. And it's dangerous to normalize those types of people. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think there are issues that I can disagree with somebody where it's fine because their disagreement doesn't dehumanize me.
Mm-hmm. But what if it dehumanizes other people?
Same thing. I can't condone that. I just
Yeah.
At that point, I can't normalize it, and I can't let them know, or I can't let them think that I think it's okay, because then I'm a bystander.